morning, guys, and we are working with Otis, the sourdough starter. And so I wanted to bring you a simple recipe because if you've never done sourdough, you will notice that you have a lot of discard. Now, every time you feed your starter, you probably have a recipe or instructions to take off a certain amount that'll be discarded. If you put that in a container like a jar or a bowl, put it in the refrigerator and keep adding to it, you will build up sourdough starter discard that you can actually use in certain recipes, whether it's super immature or whether it is on the verge of being fully mature and active. I have the discard here. It's almost a cup. This is from the sourdough starter I got from Jill at Whispering Willow Farms that Sean, the Mindful Farmer, had created back in 2013 and had shared with Jill. Well, now they together are selling it on Jill's website, and I'll put it down below. And it's actually perfect because this is one discard from Otis on day 2. And there's you can save the discard from day 2 and day 3, put them together and create this recipe as well. You need 1 cup of discarded starter. From day 2, I let this sit on the stove overnight, and I just put it in here, and the recipe calls for 1 cup, and you see it is just shy of 1 cup. So we're just going to work with this because my discard from day 3 I have started as a second starter. But this recipe that I'm using, that we're going to make pancakes, and it calls for 1 cup. And Otis is already starting to rise again. So we will be at 1 cup in no time. Alright, now to this we are going to add, it calls for buttermilk, but I don't have any buttermilk. So the trick to making your own buttermilk is for every 1 cup of milk, you put in 1 tablespoon of either white vinegar or lemon juice. And then let it stand for 5 minutes. So I'm going to make me up some real quick. I only need a 1/4 cup. So I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of milk and a 1/4 tablespoon of white vinegar. And then I'm just going to let it sit here on the counter and marinate for about 5 minutes. And then we'll come back and finish our pancakes. Okay, so while I was waiting on our milk to sour, which it has done brilliantly, it kind of gives off this little curdled effect. It's kind of curdled. And that is your soured buttermilk. Okay, so I put my starter in this big 4-cup container because this is how I'm going to mix it. So to our 1 cup of starter, let's go ahead and add 1 egg. And we're going to add a 1/4 cup of our buttermilk, which is what I have here. We need 2 tablespoons of butter, and it does say melted, but mine is already softened, so it will incorporate very well. So 2 tablespoons of butter. And then we need a tablespoon of sugar. So I'm going to do 3 teaspoons because that is the equivalent of a tablespoon, if you didn't know that. We need a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then whatever flour you used in your starter, you need a 1/2 cup of flour of the same kind. Alright, let's mix this all together. Alright, that made a very beautiful batter. If you like yours a little bit thinner, go ahead and add a little bit of water. This seems right perfect for me. This recipe will yield about 6 3 to 4 inch pancakes, just so you know that ahead of time. So now let's go ahead and clean all of this up and get a skillet out and get it preheated. Alright, so with it being just me, I'm going to just use a non-stick skillet. And we will get these taken care of real quick. I'm going to lightly coat the bottom of the pan. And let's allow it to get hot and then we'll be right back. Okay, so I've got our pan between medium and medium high. Don't want it to get too hot. But you can see our pancake batter is already bubbling. It is very active. This is actually a very active discard. Alright, so you can make whatever size pancakes you would like. I am going to keep mine about 4 inches or so. Now as it warms up, you want to watch for the bubbles in the pancake. Once the bubbles start coming up through the batter and pop, and if the hole closes as soon as they pop, it's not ready yet. If the bubbles come up and they pop and the hole stays open, then it is getting ready to flip. Just watch the edge for a little bit of browning because you don't want your pancakes to brown on the bottom before they get time to set. So that means your pan is too hot. So they are really starting to cook. I'm starting to see some bubbles come up. They're not popping yet. This one's fixing to, I believe, these two. See, it closed back up. Watch this one right here. It popped and then it pretty much closed back up. So they're not quite ready yet. Okay, you see along the edge, they are starting to pop and stay open along the edge here. In the middle is what you're looking for because you want the middle to also stay open. And they're still closing back up. Takes about 3 minutes or so if you have your temperature about medium, medium high. It takes about 3 minutes or so on each side for them to be able to get done. If you notice on this one right here, the bubbles are turning clear right before they pop. And it's getting slower and slower for them to close. The edges are starting to turn just a light tan. So these bubbles are looking really good. They're kind of staying there, and then once they pop, it's real slow to fill back in. See? Real slow. That one's not filling back in. Alright, these look like they are ready to flip. You always want to flip away from you with anything that you do. Flip away from you so it don't splatter up on you. There we go. Now what we'll do from here is we'll watch the edge and make sure that it doesn't get too dark. But again, it's going to take 2 to 3 minutes. So go ahead and get a plate, get them ready to plate up. Sourdough pancakes, as simple as that. Now, I will tell you, the more immature your discard from your starter is, the chewier pancakes may seem. You're just going to have to try to find a recipe that suits your starter level of your discard. Like I said, if it's really new, if it's really immature, if it's, not strong yet, you will have to find a recipe that implements either yeast or baking soda, baking powder. You can even use self-rising flour. If you're looking just to get the fermentation, but not necessarily the yeast part of it, your items will tend to be a little bit chewier. And they may be a little bit more sour. So just keep in mind as you're using your discard, all the recipes are going to be a little bit different as the characteristics of your starter discharge change. So I'm fixing to go enjoy these basic pancakes and see how they taste. Let me go ahead and try them on the camera. Let's see. Now I have made these before and they come out like rubber, okay? Not these specifically, but pancakes from Sourdough Starter. Okay, so here is my pancake. And you can see it's really fluffy, looks really good. But this is a really good starter. Otis is really mature, he's really aged. This is just the starter discard from getting him reactivated. So this is a really good mature starter discard. Okay, let's see what it tastes like. Yes. That recipe has a little bit of sweetness. You can taste the butter in it. And it's not so fermented that it's really sour. But you still have the benefits of sourdough in this, even though it's a discard, that will help with gut issues. That's the whole point of sourdough, is to ferment your grains or ferment your flours so that they are easily digested. And this does help, since it is a fermentation, it does help with gut health. So sourdough is very, very, very beneficial. And these pancakes are really, yeah. I like these. I don't even need syrup on these things. Excuse me. Now, you can back off the sugar. And you can actually use this recipe if you want to add your starter dough to like some cornmeal. This would be a really good recipe for flapjacks. Or whatever you call them in your area. Or hoe cakes, or you know, whatever you call them in your area. But it would be a really good fluffy recipe for that, and it tastes absolutely amazing. I actually wasn't expecting them to taste that good. Just from my discard experience before, you know, that this is a really good one. So guys, I hope you enjoy this. I hope this gives you another inspiration to start your own sourdough and not end up wasting a whole bunch of discard. You can discard and store it in a jar in the refrigerator for up to a week. If you have to keep adding to it to get enough to make something, do that. But use it within 5 to 7 days, because after that it may get too sour unless you just really like it that sour. You know, you may have a recipe that is supposed to be a more tangy recipe or a more tangy bread to go along with a meal that you might be having. So think about something like that, but save it up and then you can build up to making a certain recipe. That way you're not cooking all the time and you don't lose your discard. So until next time, guys, we will see you later, and happy baking. Bye.